Hi, it's Lyle from Made by Marley and welcome back to our channel. Today I've been doing commissions, I've been doing a lot of fine art, and today I'm really excited because I get to do something really fun. So I have, I'll get Martin to give you a shot of the drawers we're going to be. I've got a vintage set of drawers here which I picked up yesterday and they are lovely. They're missing, it's got a few handles missing, bits and pieces, but it's a nice piece. I'm going to be using, I've had this for quite a while now, I'm excited about using it. I'm going to be using this decoupage paper from Mint by Michelle. So today's piece is going to be very much a circus themed piece. Now, what I've done off camera is I drew out a sort of template like this. Imagine a circus tent, you know, with the kind of peaks and things. I cut that out of paper, and I asked Martin to recreate it for me in wood. So this piece is going to go on the back. So when you see me working, you're going to see me working on the piece and this piece as well, which is going to be attached by battening in the end. So I'm going to get Martin to show you the piece, and then let's just get on and do it. The piece has been thoroughly cleaned. I know it's been thoroughly cleaned because Martin cleaned it for me, and I heard the hoover and I heard someone washing it, and so it's all been thoroughly cleaned. But we need to take this hardware off before we can decoupage it, and this hardware is actually broken, but I'll be keeping these four and this one. I do have another set of these so I can use them again. Never bin your old hardware. So I'm going to go on and do that now. When using a piece of decoupage paper, this is the kind of way that I work it out. And so I'm looking at the piece, so I want to kind of decide first of all what the colours are going to be. So I've already picking out this sort of bluey grey, this sort of creamy beigey grey, the red, the black. So those are the sorts of colours we're going to be putting on the piece. But also what can I pull from this is, okay, we're going to do all the circusy parts and all the bells and whistles. That's a given. We're going to put some wordage and everything else on it. But I'm looking also at this, at these roses. So I want to incorporate some roses, and I pulled that from here, which makes it all work. So looking at your piece first, deciding on your colours and what you can pull from it to make it work best. That's how I work. Now, with all decoupage paper, you need to have a white background. I haven't got anything white to show you it behind, but right now this is looking pretty washed out. So we're going to put a white background behind it. It's going to pretty much go central, actually, to be honest with you. I'm having it as the focal thing. There's a little bit of where she's been kind of like, she's on a tightrope, and you can see we're going to just cut it to about there, or rip it to about there. So we're just going to have our feet on it and no more. So I know from about here to here has to be white. The rest of the piece I'm actually going to paint black. I'm going to paint it black because we're going to build it up in stripes and patterns and things. But I want to use a Crackle paint. So I have some Crackle paint, and I'm going to show you how to use it as we go. So I'm going to do a white section here, and the rest of the furniture to start with is going to be black, and that's going to be our base. Only one coat. We don't need to go with two crazy coats. Just one coat of white and one coat of black. The paint I'm using today it's a self-leveling, self-sealing paint. It's from the Jubilee range from Guild Lane, and it's a fabulous paint. It's actually really nice to put under decoupage because some chalk paints are a little bit thicker and leave a little bit too much texture. So just one, and the coverage is really well. I mean, this is white and it normally takes multiple coverages, but it's just enough to kind of give it the lightness we need behind our decoupage, and that's just one light coat. So I'm only going to do as much as our decoupage paper and the rest in black. So it's Guild Lane paint, and this is the jet black I'm going to be using, and that's what I'm doing. The piece has been painted, so this has had one coat of self-leveling paint, and the carcass has all been painted black as well. Not behind all the feet, because at one point I'm going to flip it over because I want to decorate the feet, so pretty much ignore them. Now, applying decoupage. This is the way I do it. It's the way that I get decoupage to sit nice, wrinkle free. So normally you would want straight lines, but I'm going to place this piece right up to this top part here, so that doesn't matter that this is straight. Down here to size it up, I've done a sort of line. we are now going to rip round here. And the reason why we're ripping it is to get the sort of fibres off the paper, so that when you blend it out, you're never going to know that it was decoupage paper in the first place. So to rip it, you just, you know, just rip it. It's ripping paper. You just don't rip any of your design. You just don't want any straight edges on it at all. Doesn't matter how much you take away, because you can bring it back literally with a blend. So you can be quite, just don't rip our fingers off. That would be not so good. Take a bit there. And at the bottom, where I folded it, I'm just going to do sort of a rip along this line. Like that. I'm going to try and recreate this line here once I've got our position, so don't panic too much about that. If you've got a smaller size, this decoupage paper comes in an A3, and I originally bought this, and then the piece of furniture I wanted to put it on wasn't big enough, and I just waited until I found the right piece that I could make it work on. But it does come in an A3 if you fancy doing this. I'm going to rip this part here off as well, like that. Now that looks a bit kind of brutal, really. I need to take this straight edge away from this side here. I don't want to lose any of these bits that are kind of floating about. So you get this skinny there. Some decoupage paper you can just get water and a brush and just pull it apart like that, but I find the Mint by Michelle paper is the best way that I like to work with it. So let's just size it out again. I'm going to just take this little part here off as well at our feet, just to make it a little bit easier for me. There. Now we've got all our drawers and everything to consider. So the best way to do it is to do it in sections. So I have top coat here. I apply my decoupage paper with top coat, and I've got a little container which I'm just going to pour it in. And do it in sections. So I'm just going to, doesn't matter if I go further than where my paper is going to be, that's not a problem. So let's start with this. We're not going to go too far down, probably this much to start with. And we're going to apply it, or we can cut this with a razor blade where our drawers go, but just make sure you've got enough on that it's all going to stick and there's not going to be any places where there isn't any glue. So let's just do that. I went and did a terrible thing because you need some cling paper, so I'm just going to stop the camera while I get some. So if we've got this colour down, it's still semi-wet. And what I've done is I've mixed up a sort of mustard to start blending this in, and I've got a tiny little bit of brush, black on this brush, my original colour on this, and I'm just mixing between all these. What I'm doing is looking at this shade here, and then, so I'm wanting this a little bit darker here. And I'm going to mix this, I can't talk with a paintbrush in my mouth, and I'm going to mix this in here like this, until I get, now this here is borderline and starting to get into pinks, so I'll get to that in a minute. I want this to have as vintagey feel as I can, so this sort of mustardy yellow it's kind of like, I always think when mustardy yellow you've got that sort of kind of aged vintagey look, so I want to try and keep that, you know, where as possible, to give it that sort of aged dirty look. So this bit here has got a little bit more grey hue in it. Back to the original brush and just blend that out next. The thing about this is you just have to keep playing around with it until you get it, till you stand back, and you have to keep standing back on these kind of pieces just to see how it's going, how it's looking. Is it blending in? Is it not blending in? Do I need a bit more brown? You can add a little bit more brown when you think it's more brown. So like down here where we're edging towards the pink, what I've got here is just a tiny little, I'm just going to just touch a little, tiny little bit at the bottom of the red, because when I put this near it, it's going to make it all very red. So if you just offload it a bit and then put this on, and then go back to your initial brush and go on with that and mix that into a sort of pinky colour. And then just play about with it for a while, because it's got these kind of like marks, so we want to try and recreate those now. So we're going to do that with some brown, just a tip of brown. Put that in there and blend that round there like that. But I really want to keep going back to my sort of original sort of mustard, because I'm trying to make this look old. So once you get out as far as the decoupage paper, you can do really whatever you want. So I'm going to just wrap this up and I'm going to keep on blending. But the basic blending is just look at your edges and just match it. So I haven't quite finished the blend yet, but I want to show you what it's really like. I don't want to breeze over any boo-boos or things that you might come across, because you will come across them. People always see my furniture at the end and go, oh, it's amazing. But this is the process you have to go through. As you can see, I've cut everywhere now. I've got cuts here. I'm going to have to really finely blend in where all the cuts have been along the drawers, where our neck is and everything. The first thing to get the drawer open is I had to put my screwdriver in the lock hole to pull it out. So that's the first boo-boo there. But what you want to be doing is slitting it with a razor blade. Just an ordinary razor blade, and then very gingerly taking one drawer out at a time and fixing all the things like this one at a time. So all I'm doing is I'm running my top coat back in to glue it down, and I'm putting it over the top of it like that. That's all I'm doing, and rubbing it along with my hand, just so. When this is completely dry, we'll tidy up all inside of our drawers. There's no panic about any of this, but it's probably better to do it slowly and then yanking it out and ripping it. It's a slow process. And once you've done that, if you've got a nice clean cloth, which I have here, and just wiping away the excess there. So that's that one there done. Now we've got our bit at the bottom. Same thing applies. Making sure you've got plenty of adhesive on it and just tuck it under. I wouldn't cut it off, I would just tuck it under and make sure it's really adhered. Now if you get to the end of your piece and you still have pieces that are bumping up, you can get a little bit of strong glue and a little bit of water and just run it across it again. But let's see how this goes for a start. So that's that. So I'm happy with that. You can see it's still drying out. There's a few wrinkles and things, but I'm going to add to all of this, so I'm not too worried. So this is the dog's dinner phase. It doesn't look very good, doesn't look very pretty, but however, it just has to be done. So I'm going to go along. I'm going to see if I can get the next drawer out from underneath, but no, I can't. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to do the same thing as I did before, which is awful. I'm going to just leave it a minute and come back to this. So Martin was just explaining to me how you can push it from underneath. So I've managed to do that and didn't have to have any hassle and make any more holes in it. So I'm just doing the same with this here. I'm just sticking it down. Don't worry about things like this. That doesn't faze me at all. We can blend all this in because the other part of that is on the other section. We're just making sure that everything's nice and secure. But do it really, really slowly. Don't push hard in case you've not cut quite through it and you end up ripping a piece. Because, ask me how I know. Now, I'm going to have to tuck this one back in to get this part here. And there's no point sticking it back onto this section here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to remove this drawer completely and sit it to the side so that we can stick this one down. So I'll just pop this drawer over here. And we will just stick this whole section here down into here. So So just so that it doesn't catch and it's not going to lift back up and it's nice and secure, because you don't want your decoupage paper coming away. That's the last thing you want. So she looks like the headless woman now. So making sure that that's all nice and secure. Like this. Plenty of glue. Now our face, we can fix this while we're here. And what I'm going to do is just the same thing. Plenty of glue on my brush. So these are the things that people don't want you to see, but these are the things that you'll encounter. So it's best me showing you. And you're going to lose a little bit of her neck, but we'll deal with that when we put it all back together. It's just the way I've decided to position this. Right, now, again, I've cut up here and down here, so we shouldn't have any problems, but this is where it's going to be prone to ripping. So I'm just going to push it really, really slowly. Just gently like that. And the same process, I'm just going to glue all these parts together. I'm not going to put it all back together right now. I'm going to give it all a chance to dry, because if not, my drawers all stick together with the sealer. So that's another top tip. Don't put it all back together. So I'm going to go on and I'm just going to fix the other drawer. All these little bits here that ripped when I did my cutting it with the razor blade are fine. We'll blend all those in. This is what it just takes a bit of time, and it takes a lot of effort just to get it looking absolutely perfect. But you want it to end up looking like it's been on there for years. It's part of the piece, it's all one. And this is probably the best way of doing it. Okay. While all the decoupage is drying and everything else, before we finish off the blend, I'm applying some Rust-Oleum Crackle. The best way to describe it is you sandwich it in between two coats of paint. So whatever the Crackle colour you want, you put that on the bottom. And then you put your Crackle medium, and then you put your paint on top. So I want a crackly dark red. So I'm going to put this on here, let it dry completely, go and have my dinner, come back and paint it red, and the crackle should start to appear, and then we'll start working on the piece from there on in. But first of all, I have to paint it on. So you just paint it on like paint. There's no hard and fast rule about it. It's quite thick, so you paint it on. And you let it dry completely, and then when you put your second coat on, and that's when the magic should happen, and you'll see all the crackle appearing. So I'm just going to paint the whole piece like this with this Crackle medium. We'll finish off the front of the decoupage, and then we'll let it dry a bit before we do any more. So we're kind of getting there. I am going to have to fix. I think what I will do is I'll put one of the original little keyhole fobs back over here and kind of paint it in as some sort of necklace, because there is a hole there where the keyhole is, and it's right on our throat, so we're going to have to work with that, and this is sometimes what you have to do with furniture. Right, so as far as boo-boos go, I think that I'm going to need a little artist brush to do in there in pink just to fix her face. This skirt, so what we're going to need is some red, so let's put some red along here to begin with. Now, I can obviously see it's a darker, there's a more orangey red they've got in here, and my brush is a little bit dirty, so that's not going to work. But if you want to have a more orangey red, you just add some yellow. I'll bring that along here just now. I'm trying to get rid of the pink. It would have been helpful if my brush had been clean. And I'll put some darker colours on here. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to get a cloth, and I'm just going to do this along here, because we're just wanting it on this part here. Put a bit more red on it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get, now sometimes things look black when they're really blue, so let's see. I don't want to turn it purple. So let's have a look. Put a little bit of black here. Before I do that, this side here is veering into more orangey, so let's do this. Just work that along. And our tights here. a little bit more orangey, because there's a bit of a highlight there which we can put in. The highlight, you can just get a tiny, tiny, tiny little bit of white paint and maybe just do this, just enough to rub it in with. So what do we do here? Now this is a little bit orangey and we need to kind of darken up our red a bit. So I've got a little bit of black and I'm just going to add it to my red. It's much darker here. And we're getting it, and you just need to play about with it. So we managed to fix that. There was no problem with that, and we fixed it. And a blind man running fast wouldn't be able to tell. So, happy with this section now. We're going to have to put the key fob back on here. I'm going to fill that hole because I don't have a key for it. I'm going to fill it actually and then put the key fob on. So, and we'll paint it like it's some sort of necklace she's wearing. I'm going to have to go and get a small artist brush for here. We have these parts here still to do. So these are going back to, I was just kind of letting it dry off a little bit. It was getting a little bit saturated. Let's just see if we can do, that was where my, I'm going to be honest, my brush, my razor blades kind of skidded and cut down into the decoupage paper, so there that we don't want. So you could play with the blending forever and a day, and it's really kind of up to you what you want to do. I mean, you can add it in various colours, just as long as you're kind of in the mix somewhere. I'm wanting to try and blend this up to as close as I can to Circus, because that blue is a different shade of blue than I want to use, so I'm just kind of doing this. What I could really be doing with is a much thinner brush. So I think once the Crackle medium has a chance to dry, and we come back, once it's all dry, I'll come over back to the studio with some fine artist brush and we'll fix here, we'll fix this. I'm just going to fix these just off camera now, just blending this part and this part together just to fix it so it's got a chance to dry. Okay? So the Crackle middle coat is dry now. Now I've worked out the best sort of technique with this is not to rub it up and down, it just makes it really messy looking. So just put it on and then just work it. Don't keep going over it like you would do with paint to kind of smooth it out, just keep working it like that. Kind of gentle with it. Just like that. So I've already done the front and the other side, and it's come out really quite distressed and crackled, which I really like, and I'll show you that in a minute. So just if you buy this product, I suggest that you just put it on, go back and forward once, and then just leave it. If you've missed bits, then so be it, because it just pulls the paint, see, like this. But that's okay, because when I sand it back, I think I'll quite like that, so I'm all right with that. Now, while I was letting this dry, before I let it dry, I got the black, I got the piece of wood that we cut originally from the beginning, that's going to go on the back, and I painted it black as well, and I put the Crackle on it too, so that it's all sort of cohesive when it goes together. I think these bits here are just adding to it, so I'm not too concerned. So I'm going to get off and paint the rest of this, and then we'll get to start working on all the cool bits, all the designy bits on the front. So Martin's just doing a close-up for you while I paint the sides on how the crackles are appearing. It's very heavily distressed, that's all I will say. It's not like any Crackle product I've used in the past, but because I was going for that aged vintage look, I'm really happy with it. But I think if you were looking for something with a bit less Crackle and a little bit more manageable, then I would say this isn't, you know, the best sort of Crackle product. But for a heavy distress, it's absolutely perfect, and I will use this again because I really like it. But if you're just wanting a little bit of crackle, I don't know if this is the product for you. So this is where we're at so far. Can I just circumnavigate back to the crackle? If you're looking for a soft, gentle crackle on your furniture, this is not the product for you. But can I just say, look out for more videos with this in, because I absolutely love it. It's distressing it and crackling it all at once. What more could you want? And it's big, bold, quite nasty crackle, and I quite enjoy that. It's given a look that I really was trying to achieve on this piece, so I'm really happy. But as I said, if you're looking for a sort of soft, delicate crackle on your furniture, that Rust-Oleum product isn't for you. But moving on. So I had it was a colour chart card from Jubilee. I'll do a little bit of promotion while I'm at it. And what I did was I folded it in half, and I cut out, let me try and fit that back in. I cut out this circle. I cut out the triangle, and it left me with this shape because I want to do some stamped bunting down just one side, because we're going to do some lettering and florals around here. Maybe some of it onto the piece as well. So my bunting, I am going to be using this blue because it coordinates with this blue up here, and I discussed it with Martin and he thought black might be a little bit heavy. So here we are with the blue.
Like I know anything.
So, I mean, I don't know if I listened to him, but I thought, you know, he could actually be right. So all I've got here is my makeup sponge and my lid. I'm just tapping it into so that it's not too heavy. And we're just going to use this as a homemade stencil to do some bunting. So I'm just going to be quite bold, and I'm going to start it about here. Put it onto my piece, and it's just like, you know, it's just like using a stencil. It's just your own homemade stencil. And there are going to be some videos coming up of me making homemade stencils, just because, you know, we're in the middle of a sort of pulling in our belts time in the world, and, you know, it makes things, you can do things and you don't have to spend a fortune to do them. So look out for those videos. In fact, I've got a video coming up, and it's going to be how to do a sideboard on a very, very tight budget, not using any transfers, not using any stamps that cost a fortune, just some cheap and cheerful couple of stencils, and the rest we'll do ourselves. So that's coming up. I think I'm going to be filming that shortly. So I'm just moving down the piece, and I'm just doing my bunting. That's all I'm doing. And remember, don't, you know, laden up your sponge too much. You don't want it heavy, but you can leave a little bit in the middle of it like this to make it look like it's a little bit more distressed, you know, like that. And just position it and go all the way down. So I'm going to go right down to the bottom with this, and then we'll get on to the next part. Okay, so I want to put some lettering, some words that didn't come with the decoupage on this. So what I did was I went onto Pinterest and I looked at vintage French circus posters because I wanted some extra words. And so, forgive me, I'm Scottish, I'm not very good at French. So I've managed to, and I then went and translated the words. So tous les soirs is every evening, so I'm going to put every evening there, and spectacular is a varied show, so I'm going to put that somewhere probably up here. I'm going to put some roses and things here. So what I've done is I've got some letter stamps, the IOD letter stamps, and ink pad, and I've drawn a chalk line just with kitty chalk. It's brilliant, it does the trick. Got a straight line just so that I'm kind of lining them up. Now, you know what it's like when you're stamping, it's never going to be perfect, so I wouldn't get too bent out of shape about it. So I'm just going to stamp my letters. So start with the T. I don't have any capitals in this set, and these larger typeset are too big for the piece. So I'm using, and I love these, which would have been perfect, but however they're in English, so we're going with this. So I'm just gonna get started. So like forever when you stamp, I'm not using a mount. I'm just kind of going for it. I'm just kind of making sure that everything's kind of where I want it. This is where it all ends up going wonky. So I need the O next. Oh. So I'm going to go on and I'm just going to stamp this, and then I'll show you where I'm going to put the next lot of typeset. So there we are, I've stamped that. My eye's a little bit wonky, but that, in my defence, is you'll see it when I do the next one. My eye is a little bit wonky, so you'll see it. So I've drawn another chalk mark here for my spectacular part, and I'm going to just use this piece of the drawer for my second line. So I'm just going to get on, and I'm just going to stamp this now. And once I've done that, we'll get on to other bits. So I've got some floral stamps here, and what I'm going to do is, these are from the Lady Shallot IOD stamps. I'm going to actually just stamp them first. I don't care how it stamps because I'm going to paint it in red, a dark red, and then I'm going to stamp it with the ink on top and give it a bit of a lift. So I'm wanting a sort of whole array of flowers going up this side, like a whole kind of swathe. So I'm just going to go for it. So I'll do a couple and I'll let you see, and then you can see me painting them in and things. So I'm really just, at this stage, I just really want the outline, because the outline is what I'm going to be using, you know, go over. So, you know, I'm being quite bold, not really thinking about it too much. Just as long as you can line them all back up at the end, that's always a bit fun. That's all I need for this, just an outline. I think I'll clean these stamps before I do the top ones, because they've got a bit gunked up. If your stamps get gunked up, you can get ink remover that you just brush on. I'll maybe even just show you quickly how to get rid of your, you know, because this has got quite a lot of residue on it. So I think I'm going to do something like this now. And I've got the kind of smaller one here as well. I'm just going to kind of mix and match them now. Do something like that. I've got some leaves as well, but there's no green on the piece really. I mean, I've put a kind of, I might sort of kind of, this is kind of borderline getting on the green. We'll see if we can do some light green leaves as well, just to kind of finish it off. And I'm going to do here. So I'm just going to let that dry, go and get the stamp cleaner, and I'll show you how to clean the stamps. So I've stamped them out, and now all I'm doing, now I don't mind if it's slightly larger when the stamp goes over the top, that sort of just position kind of thing, that's fine, don't worry about that. I pondered with making this a little bit darker, this red, but I thought I'll kind of alternate them in sort of varying shades, because the red on the side looks much darker because it's got black underneath, and this has got some darker. So you can have a little bit to hand of a little bit of black, and just the tiniest touch, I mean just a tiny touch, will make your flowers a little bit darker if you want them to be a little bit darker like that. I'll maybe do some, just a little bit like that. So once these are dry, all I'm going to do is I'm going to just go ahead and stamp over the top of them. Now, I was going to show you quickly, I'll just stop doing this just so I'm bouncing about all over the place tonight, so I can show you the stamp cleaner. I don't want that edge left, that's why I'm saying it doesn't matter if it's a little bit over. It's not a very neat edge there. And as you can see, I also stamped some leaves. I just used half of the leaves, so I just kind of inked it to there and put it to there, and we'll just paint the whole thing in. Now, stamp cleaner, you just, it's got a sort of roller ball in the end, and all you do is you just roll it onto your your stamp like this. And you can get these on Amazon. I think we may have an affiliate link. If you go on to our YouTube channel, you can get this off Amazon. It's really good. It just takes it off. It's like magic. So you do this. I would suggest using a really old cloth. Oh, my stomach's making a funny noise. To rub it off with. And you just do this. And it just takes all the ink off the stamp. And if you feel it's not been good enough the first time, you can just go back and do it again. It's the best way of getting this ink off. So if you feel like round the edges there, for example, hasn't had, it's a very dirty process. One day I started to clean my stamps and my hands were absolutely filthy and the ink doesn't really come off. So, you know, if I was you, I would suggest wearing gloves. It's not something I do, but you should. So there you go. I mean, it's looking pretty good compared to what it looked like before. So that's how you just clean your stamps. So off camera, while I was painting these, Martin has cleaned my stamps and they look good as new again. Even the one that I kind of half cleaned, he's cleaned them. So I'm just going to use them on this now. But before I do the flowers, I'm just going to show you what I do with the leaves. I just get a couple of bits of masking tape. Just stick it on there. You don't want it too tacky. It's just to kind of make sure that you don't kind of go too far onto the rose. So I know that I'm only having to go about this far. So you just ink it up. And then stamp it on. And that just stops it kind of like just masking off, so you're not getting it on your roses. Like that. Now, when it comes to the big ones, you're just kind of, I'm wanting this to look like it's a sort of kind of vintagey part of the thing. So stamp up your, make sure you give a right good stamp all over. And the trickiest part of this, once you've done this, is lining it up. But I kind of get it there and thereabouts, and I think, right, well, just keep moving it round until you get it. I think that's probably it, and I just kind of went over the lines, so I'm just going to do that. I'm just going to commit to that one. And then just, as you do with all stamps, just make sure that you're putting all your weight onto it. Like that. This as well, you have to make sure your paint is completely dry. If not, you'll get a muddy looking stamp effect and it's not very good. So I'm just making sure that all my edges are done so it's nice and crisp. And pull it off. So I'm just going to go on and I'm going to do the rest of these stamps and then we will get to the top part. So that's all the flowers stamped, and that brings that piece together. And I've got a black fine liner acrylic pen, and I've just done a little bit of a highlight onto my bunting. Onto the top, which had the black and the red crackle on it, and I've drawn the sort of roofs of the Circus tent, and all I'm going to use is the original mix, which was this mix, this creamy mix for behind, to do in between. I've just put some tape. I didn't even kind of measure it out, I just did some stripes. And all I'm going to do is, but I'm not going to do the top of the little kind of peaks of the tent, and I'm just going to paint those in like this. And then we'll remove that and we'll get this part finished. There's a little, I want to put a word in here which I think is, what word did I want to put? Entry, so entrance on, and put it in French on this part. So I'm just gonna paint this in and then we'll get on to the next part. So it's coming together quite nicely. You saw me put the masking tape on. This was the original red. I painted the tops black and I put a distressed cream. I put the cream that was originally this on with a sort of distress. I then got a razor blade and cut a makeup sponge into a half. You know, I cut it in half that way so that I had a triangle, and I stamped the bunting on this end. Now what I'm going to do next is I want to put the words enter but in French, so I'm just kind of entrée. Okay, Martin, entrée. I'm going to put these T R, and I need another E. I need to use the E again at the end, but I'm just kind of like getting my spacing right for them. I think that's going to go a bit like this. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stamp these on here with my other E on the end. It needs an acute, and if you have anything like this that needs an acute or anything, just use an acrylic marker. So I'm going to stamp this on here, and then we're going to do a little bit more stamping with the star. I'm going to put a star on each part of this bunting. So I'll get on and stamp this first. So I've stamped the stars on it, and then in my infinite wisdom I decided to put red to do, but the red came out quite pink, so I put white over the top of it. I don't exactly love the colours of this because it's not very vintagey, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to clear wax this wooden piece, and I'll put some brown wax over the top of this, and that should darken it all down and make it more what I'm looking for. So I've moved on from that. That's just that. So I'm going to do the same star stamp on each one of my bunting, like that. And we're getting kind of closer to the end now. Just thought the bunting needed something, and so that'll make that a little bit more interesting. So I'll go on and I'll stamp my bunting, and then we'll hopefully get this wooden piece on the top of the piece. So we abandoned last night. It got far too late, so it's a new day and we've not got much left to finish off. So what I did this morning when I came into the studio is I felt there was a bit of a negative space down the bottom, and because I'd cut up the decoupage paper, there was a suggestion of some buildings in the background where she was climbing. So I re-put in the tightrope, and I just used an acrylic fine line on the fine line setting to do this. And then I just did some light grey suggestions of a cityscape in the background, and I just went round it with the black outline just to give it that sort of that finished look. Now, you're probably wondering why I didn't fill the keyholes in the very beginning. I didn't fill the keyholes because when I was doing a blend, I needed to be able to go in and out the drawers, and I needed that hole to get the drawers out. So these have all been filled. There was one here, here. There was the one on her neck, which I am going to put the key surround back on like that to make it look like a necklace, just to cover up that part there. I had some, I really love putting fancy handles on furniture, but sometimes the furniture's so busy and there's so much going on that it just doesn't need it. So I just got some little pine knobs, and I've just painted them the black self-sealing paint, 2 coats, let it dry, and I'll wax these. The next thing I want to do is I want to wax. I went over the whole piece just checking there was no loose pieces of decoupage, and if there was, I took a little bit of really strong glue, I just ran it under it and just stuck it back down. So next I'm going to clear wax the front, and then we'll put some dark wax on. So I'll just put the bottom drawer back in so that we can do that, and then we'll get the drawers out, and I'll get Martin to put the handles on it, and then we'll get on to maybe adding some dark wax around the top. The whole piece has been painted with self-sealing paint, but because we've got decoupage paper on there and it's had the top coat medium applied over the top of it twice, I still want to really protect it. So I'm going to just wax the front and just add some dark wax to probably the rest, and maybe some clear at the top and things. So all I've got here is a soft cloth with some wax, generous amount, and I'm just going to wax it just to keep it sealed, and for no other reason as well that I want to put a little bit of dark wax on it, and we know that we have to use clear wax before we use dark wax. Dark wax is really difficult to get out of pieces, and this is your kind of like eraser. If you make a bit of a mistake, you can just wipe it off again with clear wax. So I'm just going to wax this because it's already sealed. It's just to give it an extra layer of protection, just like this, over the whole piece of the front. Just sealing all those stamps as well. Now, that's all I'm going to do to this front section. I've got some dark wax here. Now, dark wax can really overpower a piece quite quickly, so let's just kind of like proceed with caution. I quite like that, so I'm not going to fiddle around too much with it. I'm just really kind of just giving it a little bit of depth and a little bit of age. And so this is what I'm going to do next. I'm just applying my dark wax to the edges of the piece where it might have got a little bit dirty. Just like this. If it's too much, give it a little bit of a wipe. Quite like that sort of grunginess in it, those roses there. Yeah. So I'm going to go on and I'm going to dark wax, and the next time you see it, it'll have its hardware on. We'll put the handles on, and then we'll get to the top part. The back piece has been attached and I've clear waxed it, but this is the part that I was saying to you last night that I'm not exactly happy with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put lots of dark wax on that just to age it off and get rid of those lines that I didn't like. Just darken them down and age them off. I've put clear wax on, so I'm not too frightened if it's too much. And I'm just giving this top edge a little bit of age. I'm going to be making sure that I put plenty of dark wax down in here, because that's where all the dirt would settle. And soft cloth, and I'm just kind of, I want that to look like it's got a sort of dirty ring round it, a dirty sort of section, so that's fine. I'm not going to over wipe that because I want that to look dirty. I'll do the same one here, so I'll just finish this. The handles are on. I decided I'm not painting the feet. I like them just black. I think they match the handles, so I'll give you the full shot of how it looks now it's finished in a minute. Ta-da! We're finished. I'll get Martin to give you a full run around the piece in a minute. So what did we do today? We decoupaged. If you do this kind of thing and you're starting to kind of get into it and this is what you kind of want to do for a living, the quirkier, the better decoupage pieces for me sell really well and incredibly quickly. People come to me for this kind of thing. So decoupaging is a brilliant way of just taking a focal point, because the Mint by Michelle decoupage paper, I cannot sing the praises of this paper highly enough. I wanted to try and put wrinkles in this to kind of age it, but the wrinkles just disappeared. It just is so seamless, it's easy to work with. It's got really good kind of backgrounds that are simple and easy to blend into your furniture. So decoupage paper is a fabulous way of doing up furniture, and I just love it. What did we do? We applied our decoupage paper, we blended, we put the Crackle glaze on. I mean, the Crackle, I just love it. It's not just crackled it, it's completely distressed it, and the texture that it's left, it's got texture. It looks old. It was already old anyway, but it looks older. The back piece Martin cut out, I just painted it to give it a little bit more interest. Little cheap little pine handles painted black. I put the key fob back in there because there was going to be a hole that I couldn't cover. And I left the feet black. They match the handles and it makes it more cohesive. I was going to put stripes on them and make them quite ornate, but I think the lovely ball feet just being black is enough. I think that's everything that I've got to say. Remember and age your pieces, even though you've kind of done your distress and it's got Crackle and everything else, but a little bit of dark wax, if you apply some clear first, really kind of ages off your piece. So I've been Lyle from Made by Marley. Please like, share, subscribe. Leave me a comment if there's something that you want to do and you're thinking, not quite sure and I'm looking for a technique, just leave me a message. And I think that's everything that I've got to say. So I'll see you again another day. Thank you.